Imagine an empire so feared, its very name was a weapon. For 300 years, the Assyrians were the most terrifying power in the ancient world. Their armies were ruthless, armed with iron weapons and colossal siege machines. They mastered psychological warfare to such a degree that entire cities would surrender without a fight, just at the rumor of their approach. They dominated the Middle East from Mesopotamia to Egypt, building an empire that seemed invincible. And then, almost overnight, they vanished from the pages of history. The empire that taught the world how to wage war was utterly and completely destroyed. How did this happen? The story of Assyria begins in northern Mesopotamia, in cities like Ashur, Nineveh, and Nimrud. For centuries, they were a regional power, but under a series of ambitious and brutal kings, they transformed into a terrifying war machine. Kings like Ashurnasirpal II and Tiglath-Pileser III forged the world's first professional standing army. They were innovators in warfare. While others were still using bronze, the Assyrians armed their soldiers with cheaper, stronger iron weapons. They built massive siege towers and battering rams that could smash through any city wall. But their most effective weapon was terror. They broadcast their cruelty, creating reliefs that showed them flaying enemies alive and stacking pyramids of skulls. They perfected the art of mass deportation, uprooting entire populations to break their will and prevent rebellion. Names like Sargon II, Sennacherib, and Ashurbanipal became synonymous with conquest and fear. At its peak, under the reign of Ashurbanipal in the 7th century BC, the Assyrian Empire was the largest the world had ever seen. It stretched from the Persian Gulf to the Mediterranean, and even controlled Egypt for a time. Nineveh, the capital, became a glittering metropolis. Ashurbanipal, despite his reputation as a warrior king, was also a scholar. He built a magnificent library, collecting tens of thousands of clay tablets from across his empire, preserving knowledge from all corners of the ancient world. The empire was run by a sophisticated bureaucracy and a vast network of spies, ensuring the king's will was enforced everywhere. But this entire system was built on a fragile foundation: constant, brutal warfare. The empire was a shark. It had to keep moving, keep conquering to survive. The moment the conquest stopped, the cracks would begin to show, and that's exactly what happened. The hidden weakness of the Assyrian Empire was its complete dependence on the king and the army. After Ashurbanipal's death around 627 BC, the empire was plunged into chaos. A series of weak kings fought each other for the throne, sparking devastating civil wars that tore the heart out of the empire. Decades of non-stop campaigning had exhausted the economy. The constant need for soldiers, resources, and tribute drained the provinces dry. The cruelty that had been so effective as a tool of conquest now backfired. The subjugated peoples, who had been brutally oppressed for generations, saw their chance. Rebellions erupted everywhere, from Babylonia to the Levant. The empire's borders, once a source of pride, were now overextended and impossible to defend against a world of enemies. While Assyria was tearing itself apart from the inside, new powers were rising on its borders. To the east, in modern-day Iran, the Median tribes, once fractured and divided, united under a powerful king named Cyaxares. To the south, the ancient city of Babylon, which had suffered terribly under Assyrian rule, declared its independence under a charismatic leader named Nabopolassar. These two new kings were united by a common goal and a shared, burning hatred for their former masters. They formed a powerful coalition, a grand alliance with one purpose: to wipe the Assyrian Empire off the face of the earth. The hunter was about to become the hunted. In 612 BC, the combined armies of the Medes and Babylonians arrived at the gates of Nineveh, the supposedly impregnable capital of Assyria. What followed was a siege of epic proportions. Ancient sources like the Book of Nahum in the Bible tell a dramatic story. They claim that unusually heavy rains caused the Tigris River to flood, weakening and collapsing a section of Nineveh's massive defensive walls. Whether by flood or by the sheer force of the allied army, the walls were breached. The invaders poured into the city, and Nineveh, the heart of the empire, was consumed by brutal street-by-street fighting. The city was systematically looted, its grand palaces set ablaze. The intense fires baked the clay tablets in Ashurbanipal's library, ironically preserving them for future archaeologists to find. Nineveh was so thoroughly destroyed that its location was lost for over 2,000 years. The fall of Nineveh was the mortal blow, but the empire's death throes lasted a few more years. A small Assyrian remnant, led by a general who crowned himself king, retreated to the city of Haran. But they couldn't hold out for long. In 609 BC, they were finally defeated by the Babylonian-Median alliance. The Assyrian Empire was officially over. Its vast territories were carved up between the victorious Babylonians and Medes. The Assyrian people were not completely wiped out, but they were scattered and absorbed into the new empires, their distinct identity fading into history. The world's greatest superpower had ceased to exist. So why did Assyria really fall? It wasn't just one thing, but a perfect storm of failures. Their entire state was over-militarized, built for conquest but not for long-term stability. Decades of civil war and political instability after Ashurbanipal's death fatally weakened the central government. The economy, bled dry by endless wars, simply collapsed. Most importantly, their policy of extreme brutality created a world filled with enemies who were just waiting for a moment of weakness to get their revenge. Assyria had subjects, but no real allies. The empire was built on fear, and when the fear was gone, there was nothing left to hold it together. An empire built on terror will inevitably be consumed by the hatred it creates. But Assyria's story didn't end in 612 BC. Its legacy echoed through the ages. Their military tactics, siege engineering, and administrative systems were studied and copied by later empires, including Persia and Rome. The library of Ashurbanipal, rediscovered by archaeologists in the 19th century, gave us an unparalleled window into the ancient world, preserving priceless works of literature like the Epic of Gilgamesh. The rediscovery of the lost cities of Nineveh and Nimrud was a stunning archaeological achievement, proving that the terrifying empire from the Bible was very, very real. In the end, the fall of Assyria offers a timeless lesson. It shows that an empire built on conquest and terror is ultimately building its own tomb. You can conquer the world with an army, but you cannot build lasting loyalty with fear. When the strength to inspire that fear finally falters, the whole structure comes crashing down. Assyria taught the world how to conquer, but it also taught the world that might alone does not make right, and that even the most powerful empires can be brought to ruin. Thanks for watching, and if you enjoyed this journey into the past, don't forget to like and subscribe for more.